It started with the phone ringing. Not a big deal, right? Phones ring all the time. But when you're alone in a strange house, babysitting 2 sleeping children, and the call comes at exactly midnight, something about it feels wrong. The number was private. I hesitated, then answered. Silence. Hello? I said, voice barely above a whisper. Nothing. Just breathing. Slow, deliberate, like someone was savoring the moment. I hung up. A minute later, the phone rang again. Same number. Same silence. Same slow, measured breathing. My fingers trembled as I set the phone down. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was just my imagination making it worse than it was. But my gut told me otherwise. The house felt different now. The warm glow of the living room lamp wasn't comforting anymore. It was glaring, too bright, like it was trying to keep the shadows at bay. I glanced at the baby monitor on the coffee table. The kids were asleep, safe in their rooms upstairs. I told myself it was fine, just a stupid call, nothing to worry about. But then the phone rang a third time, this time a whisper. I see you. I shot up from the couch, my breath caught in my throat. My eyes darted around the room. The windows, the curtains, the front door. Had I locked it? I couldn't remember. Who is this? My voice came out small, almost childlike. No answer. Just a soft chuckle. The line went dead. I bolted for the front door and checked the lock. Secure. The windows were shut too. Everything was locked. But that didn't make me feel better. Then came a sound that turned my stomach to ice. A soft tap, tap, tap against the glass patio door behind me. Slow, deliberate. I turned, every muscle in my body rigid with fear. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, wide-eyed and trembling. But there was something wrong. The patio door had heavy curtains drawn across it. I shouldn't have been able to see my reflection at all. I blinked, and the reflection smiled. I stumbled back, heart hammering in my chest. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to see what was really behind me. But the moment stretched too long, the silence pressing down like a suffocating weight. I had to move. I had to look. I spun around. Nothing. Just the dimly lit living room, the flickering glow of the lamp casting long, uneasy shadows. I was shaking. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe the stress was getting to me. I needed to focus. I needed to. The baby monitor crackled. A soft, muffled voice drifted through the static. At first, I thought it was one of the kids talking in their sleep. But then I heard it clearly. A whisper. Check on the children. My blood turned cold. I grabbed the baby monitor and listened, holding my breath. Silence. Then the sound of something shuffling. Not a child. Something heavier. My feet moved before my brain could stop them. I sprinted up the stairs 2 at a time, bursting into the first bedroom. Little Emily, just 5 years old, was curled up in her bed, sleeping soundly. I let out a shaky breath. Then I checked Noah's room. He was only 3. I pushed the door open. The window was open. The curtains billowed in the cold night air, and Noah's bed was empty. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave. I rushed to the window, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The backyard stretched out in eerie silence, the playground equipment casting grotesque shadows in the moonlight. Then I saw him. Noah stood at the far end of the yard, facing the tree line, completely still. I screamed his name, but he didn't move. I tore down the stairs and out the back door, the cold grass wet beneath my bare feet. My heart pounded as I ran toward him, my mind racing with questions. How did he get out here? Why wasn't he moving? As I reached him, I grabbed his shoulders and turned him toward me. His face was pale. His lips trembled. His tiny voice, barely above a whisper, sent ice through my veins. She said you weren't supposed to see her. A chill ran down my spine. I looked up, and there, standing at the edge of the trees, was a woman. No, not a woman. Something else. Tall, gaunt, eyes black and bottomless, like 2 pits in her pale face. She tilted her head, watching me. Then she took a step forward, and Noah's body stiffened in my arms. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember running. All I remember is grabbing Noah and bolting back into the house, slamming the door behind me. The phone rang. The same private number. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The ringing stopped, and then, through the baby monitor, I heard her whisper, "You shouldn't have looked." Silence. Then, the closet door in the hallway creaked open. I turned my head slowly, every hair on my body standing on end. Something moved inside the darkened closet, and then the lights flickered. The phone rang again, and Noah whispered, "She's already inside." I could still hear her voice, faint but chilling, echoing in my mind. "She's already inside." Those words repeated over and over, a cruel mantra that wouldn't leave. I kept looking at the closet door, willing it to stay shut, but I could feel her presence behind it. Something dark, something twisted. Noah clung to me, his tiny hands trembling, his wide eyes staring at the door, too afraid to blink. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I pressed my ear to his little chest, listening to his heartbeat, a rapid, irregular rhythm, like it wasn't even his own. His warmth was all I had left of my world. My mind raced, frantically piecing together the broken fragments of the night, trying to make sense of the impossible. What did she mean? She's already inside? Was this some kind of sick joke? No, there was no joke in this. The terror was real. The fear wasn't just mine, it was Noah's too. I could see it in his face. His terror mirrored my own. And then the door creaked. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, like the soft groan of a forgotten memory. But it was enough to send my body into a state of complete paralysis. The door was opening. My hand reached out for the phone, but my fingers wouldn't obey. I could feel the weight of the air around me, heavy, thick with the promise of something sinister. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to call for help, but the phone remained just out of reach. The baby monitor crackled again, louder this time. Her voice, came through like a hiss, a whisper that slithered into my ears and wrapped around my soul. "Don't you dare leave, darling." The sound of it made my skin crawl. It wasn't a voice I recognized. It wasn't human. My heart skipped a beat. This was real. This wasn't just a nightmare I could wake up from. She was here. The closet door swung open inch by inch, slow and deliberate, revealing nothing but the darkness inside. But that's not what terrified me the most. What terrified me was the whisper that followed, so close I could feel the breath on the back of my neck. "I've been waiting for you." I pressed Noah closer to me, my arms trembling as I tried to shield him from the unseen horror. He buried his face in my chest, his tiny sobs muffled by the fabric of my shirt. His fear consumed me, and I could feel the hot sting of tears in my own eyes. I was failing him. I was supposed to protect him. He trusted me. But I couldn't stop whatever was coming for us. I wanted to scream, but my voice was caught in my throat. Every word felt suffocating, like it would betray us to the thing waiting in the dark. I glanced back at the closet. The darkness inside had shifted. Someone was standing there. Just out of sight, but I could feel it. I could feel her. And then Noah's voice, small and shaking, broke through the silence. "Mommy, I don't want to go with her." My heart shattered. I wasn't his mother. I wasn't supposed to be his mother. But in that moment, I wanted nothing more than to be the protector I was supposed to be. I would have given anything to be his mother, to have the strength to save him. But the cold reality settled in. I couldn't even protect him from the horror standing just feet away. I glanced at the window, hoping for some kind of escape, but the night outside was a wall of darkness. The streetlights flickered like dying stars, offering no comfort. I turned back to the closet. Her presence was undeniable now. She was here, and she was no longer hiding. With a deafening crash, the closet door flew open, revealing nothing but shadows. But I saw it then. The figure. Thin and tall, her long, bony fingers stretched out toward us. She moved in jerky, unnatural motions like a marionette with tangled strings. Her skin was pale and stretched tight over her bones, her eyes nothing but deep, empty voids. Noah screamed. It was a high-pitched, gut-wrenching cry that made my blood run cold. I tried to move, to push him away from the thing reaching for us, but my body wouldn't cooperate. My mind was in a fog, my limbs heavy, like I was wading through water. She reached for Noah. I screamed his name, I lunged for him, but before I could touch him, she disappeared. In the blink of an eye, gone. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it might explode. The room was silent again, save for the pounding of my pulse in my ears. I searched the dark corners of the room, but there was no sign of her, no sign of Noah. The closet door slammed shut, as if mocking me, as if telling me I would never find him. I stumbled back, my eyes wide, my body numb. The baby monitor crackled again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. It was a laugh, a deep, hollow laugh that seemed to fill the entire room. I dropped the phone, and then, just as quickly, everything went dark, and I realized with a sickening jolt that I wasn't alone anymore. I woke up to complete darkness, cold, suffocating darkness. I could feel the air pressing in, the weight of the silence crushing me. My chest was tight, my throat raw. The baby monitor was still on the floor, its screen a pale ghost of what it had been earlier. I didn't know how long I'd been lying there, but the panic still gnawed at my insides, relentless and unforgiving. I had to move. I had to find him. But every step felt like wading through tar. My limbs were heavy, sluggish, as if something was pulling at me, holding me down. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in the dark, but I couldn't hear anything else. No whispers, no laughter, no sounds of the woman, just silence. The kind of silence that suffocates you, that makes your skin crawl and your bones ache. Then I heard something, a soft, almost imperceptible sound like a distant shuffle, a footstep on the creaking wood of the hallway floor. I froze. The air shifted. My breath hitched in my throat as I strained to listen, my eyes desperately searching the shadows. Noah. Where was he? The faint sound came again, closer this time. I pushed myself to my feet, heart in my throat, and stumbled toward the source. The hallway stretched before me like a long, dark tunnel. The faint glow of the nightlight in the bathroom, barely enough to cast shadows along the walls. My mind raced, trying to piece together everything that had happened. She was inside the house, and Noah was gone. I tried to shout his name, but my voice was strangled, caught in a tight knot in my chest. Something was wrong, so wrong, and the closer I got to the stairs, the more the weight of it pressed down on me. I wanted to run, to flee, but I couldn't leave him. I couldn't leave Noah. The footsteps came again, but they weren't alone. There was something else in the house with us. Something I couldn't see, but I could feel it, like a presence in the air pressing against me. And then the phone rang. It wasn't the baby monitor this time, the landline. My blood turned cold. I didn't want to answer. My hand trembled violently as I reached for the receiver, but I knew I had no choice. I had to. I had to find out if Noah was okay. I lifted the receiver, the metal cold against my ear, and heard nothing at first. Just the sound of my breath, loud and panicked, filling the space around me. I waited, my heartbeat thundering in my chest. Then came a voice, quiet, soft like a breath. I've been waiting for you. It wasn't her, it wasn't the woman from before. This voice was different, young, childlike, but somehow wrong. Noah? My voice cracked as I whispered into the receiver, hoping, praying it was him. The voice on the other end chuckled, a low, mocking sound. She's gone now. I'm free. I felt my legs go weak beneath me. I couldn't breathe. My eyes blurred with tears, my hands shaking uncontrollably. It wasn't Noah. It wasn't my Noah. The phone line went dead. I dropped the receiver, my knees buckling as I collapsed to the floor. My hands pressed to my face, trying to stop the tears that flowed freely now. My chest ached with an emptiness I couldn't understand, a grief that felt as though it had consumed me from the inside out. It wasn't just Noah that was gone. It was something more. Something I couldn't put into words. Something that had torn at the very fabric of reality. Something that had twisted the world into something unrecognizable. And then, I heard him. A small voice, trembling with fear, calling my name from the top of the stairs. Sarah? My heart leapt into my throat and I shot to my feet, my mind barely able to register what was happening. I didn't stop to think. I ran. I reached the stairs in seconds, my breath catching in my throat as I looked up, hoping against hope that this was real. There he was, Noah, but he wasn't standing. He was kneeling at the top of the stairs, his head bowed, his small body trembling. And then I saw her, standing behind him. She was taller than before. Too tall, her limbs unnaturally long and thin, her face now barely recognizable. The woman, or whatever she was, loomed behind Noah like a dark shadow, her cold eyes staring at me, unblinking. I opened my mouth to scream, to shout for Noah to run, to get away, but my voice wouldn't come. I couldn't make a sound. My throat was closed, suffocated by the terror that was clawing at me from all directions. Noah didn't move. He didn't even seem to acknowledge me, his gaze fixed on the woman. His hands were trembling, his eyes wide and unblinking, as if he was in some kind of trance. And then she spoke. "Do you remember Sarah?" Her voice was soft, almost gentle, but it sent a chill through my bones. "Do you remember what you did?" I froze. What I did? I didn't understand. I couldn't remember anything that could explain this nightmare. And then, with a sudden jerk, Noah stood up and turned to face me. His eyes were no longer his own. They were black, empty, and he smiled. I had to be dreaming. There was no other explanation. The eyes staring back at me, black as the night, couldn't possibly belong to my son. The child I had held in my arms, the one I had soothed to sleep with soft lullabies and warm hugs. This thing in front of me wasn't Noah. It couldn't be. "Mommy, I'm sorry," Noah whispered, his voice so faint, so different, that it barely sounded like him. "She told me I had to. I had to." My knees buckled under me, and I collapsed to the floor. The breath left my chest in a rush, as if I had been punched in the gut. Tears burned my eyes, but I couldn't even cry. Not now, not when the terror clawed its way into my very soul. The woman, no, the thing, was still standing behind Noah. She didn't move. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough to paralyze me, to keep me trapped in this nightmare. My heart thundered in my chest, the sound deafening in the silence. And then Noah's mouth stretched into a grin too wide, too unnatural. His eyes never left mine, but the smile was all wrong. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I was frozen, my mind spiraling into panic as the impossible reality of the situation hit me like a tidal wave. "You don't know what's coming," the woman finally spoke, her voice like ice scraping across metal. She stepped closer, her footsteps eerily soft on the stairs, though they should have been deafening in the silence. Every inch she moved felt like a betrayal to the world I once knew, the world I thought I could protect. Noah didn't speak again. He just stood there, his grin still plastered on his face, unblinking, like he was waiting for some command I couldn't understand. "Do you know why he's mine now?" the woman asked, her head tilting in an unnatural angle. The movement was too smooth, too fluid to be human. "Because of you, Sarah. Because of what you did." I could feel the coldness of her words wrapping around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. My head spun. I couldn't focus. What had I done? What was she talking about? My thoughts were a jumbled mess, memories flickering in and out like broken film reels. There was something I had done, something terrible, but the pieces of the puzzle wouldn't fit together. The guilt gnawed at me, but it wasn't just my guilt. It was something deeper, something sinister. And then it hit me, the thing I had buried deep in my mind, the thing I had been trying to forget. I had made a promise. The room began to spin as the full weight of the revelation crashed down on me. I felt as though the floor beneath me was shifting, tilting, like I was falling into an abyss. I tried to steady myself, but my hands trembled uncontrollably. "You promised," the woman whispered, her voice like a hiss in my ear. "You promised you'd bring him to me." My throat tightened, the words strangling me as they fought to break free. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even scream. But the words came anyway, like a confession I wasn't ready to make. I didn't. My voice cracked. I didn't mean to. I thought it was just a story, just a game. You were wrong. The woman's laugh was soft, almost soothing. But you knew. Deep down, you knew what you were doing. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. It couldn't be true. It couldn't. But the pieces were all coming together, and I couldn't deny it anymore. The promise, the ritual, the things I had read about, the things I had dismissed as myths, as legends. But I had done it. I had brought her here. I had invited her in. And now she was taking Noah. I reached for Noah, my hands shaking as I tried to pull him toward me, but he didn't move. He didn't even blink. The dark eyes staring back at me were empty, hollow, like the light inside him had been snuffed out. I tried again, more forcefully this time, but the woman stepped between us, blocking my path. Her long, bony fingers reached out and wrapped around my wrist, the touch cold as death. "You can't save him," she whispered. "He's mine now, and so are you." Her grip tightened, and I gasped, the air knocked from my lungs. The world around me began to blur, and I felt the room closing in, the walls pressing against me as if they were alive, suffocating me. I struggled, pulling against her, but her strength was unnatural, inhuman. I could feel her cold breath on my skin, her foul presence surrounding me. I had never been so scared in my entire life. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Noah's mouth was moving, but no sound came. His lips parted, and then I saw it. The thing that had been inside him, a shape, a shadow writhing beneath his skin, pushing against it. It was her. I stepped back, my heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My entire body was frozen in terror. I watched in horror as Noah's skin began to ripple, his small body trembling violently as if he were fighting against something inside of him. And then it stopped. The rippling ceased, the darkness in his eyes vanished, and for the briefest moment, I saw my Noah again. But it wasn't him. The smile returned. The grin that had haunted me, twisted and wrong, and Noah's voice, distorted and far too cold, spoke. "You shouldn't have made the promise, Mommy. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I was trapped in this house, trapped in this nightmare, with no way out." And then, from the shadows, the woman whispered again, her voice now a soft, sweet lullaby, as though nothing had ever happened. "It's only just begun, Sarah." And I realized with a sinking dread that this was only the beginning. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. The darkness pressed in on me, wrapping around my chest like a vice. The weight of what was happening, of what I had done, was suffocating, and for a moment I truly believed I had lost everything. Noah. My Noah was gone. The thing standing in front of me, wearing his face, was not my son. The woman, the creature, was right. I had made the promise. I had unknowingly invited this nightmare into our lives, and now there was no way to undo it. But then, through the terror, I remembered. The charm. The small, tarnished silver cross my grandmother had given me when I was a child. It had always been with me, even in the darkest of times, a constant reminder of the protection she had sworn it would give. I had forgotten it for so long. But now, with everything slipping away, I knew I had no choice. I fumbled in my pocket, my fingers trembling as I retrieved the charm. The cool metal sent a shock through my system, grounding me, pulling me back from the edge. For a moment, the room around me seemed to tilt, warping in and out of focus. But the charm, it was like a thread in the dark, pulling me back to the light. I clutched it in my hand, feeling its power surge through me like a pulse, and whispered the words my grandmother had taught me. The words that were supposed to protect me, to protect anyone who was in danger. "By the blood of the saints I bind you. By the power of the holy I cast you out." The words felt foreign on my tongue, ancient but real. And as I said them, I felt a shift, something twisted and dark unwinding, unraveling around me. The air seemed to grow thicker, charged with a strange energy that crackled in the silence. The woman, no, the creature, screamed. It was a sound that didn't belong in the world. It wasn't human. It was a tearing, a rending of something ancient, something primal. The walls shook, the house groaning under the pressure, and Noah, the twisted version of him, let out a guttural growl that made my blood run cold. I felt the charm burn in my hand, the silver scorching my palm, but I held on. I couldn't stop. I couldn't let go. The house began to tremble more violently, the lights flickering, then going out completely. The baby monitor beside me crackled to life, its screen flickering with static, showing nothing but blackness. And then, amidst the crackling, a whispering. Faint at first, then growing louder, more distinct. "Mommy, I'm sorry." It was Noah, his voice, but it wasn't right. "Mommy, I didn't want this." I almost collapsed, the weight of his words crushing me, but I held on. I clutched the charm tighter, the words of the incantation rising in my throat once more. "By the blood of the saints I bind you." The woman's scream intensified, the force of it rattling my bones. Then something snapped. Everything went still. The screaming, the whispering, the trembling of the house. It all stopped at once. The air felt heavy with anticipation, like the world itself was holding its breath. I opened my eyes, not even realizing I had closed them, and saw the creature before me, her form flickering, shifting, distorting like a mirage, her eyes locked onto mine. "Do you really think you can stop me?" she hissed, her voice venomous. "You think a trinket will save you?" But then, something impossible happened. The charm burned even hotter in my hand, and I felt it, a surge of power that I couldn't comprehend, something ancient and pure. The woman screamed again, but it was different this time. It was a scream of fury, of defeat. Her form flickered one last time, and then she vanished. Noah's body slumped to the floor, lifeless, but the darkness in his eyes was gone. His small chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw him, my Noah, truly, deeply, my Noah. I crawled to him, my hands trembling as I pulled him into my arms. His skin was cold, but he was alive, and that was all that mattered. I could hear my heart thundering in my chest as I held Noah close, my fingers running through his hair, trying to calm him. He was shaking, his face pale and haunted, but he was alive. I had done it. I had broken the curse. I had stopped the woman, the creature, the thing that had tried to take him from me. But as I looked around the room, I realized something. It was too quiet. I glanced at the baby monitor, which was still on the floor, the screen flickering in and out. But there was something else. Something strange. The whispering had returned. It was faint, almost like a whisper in the wind, but it was there. "Sarah." The voice was soft, too soft, like a memory, like a promise. "Sarah, you can never escape me." My blood ran cold. I looked at Noah, who was still in my arms, his eyes wide and confused. "Mommy, who is that?" he asked, his voice shaking. I didn't answer him. I couldn't, because deep down, I knew the truth. The thing, the woman, the creature, was still out there, watching, waiting, and the whispering on the baby monitor grew louder, more distinct. "I'll be back." The screen went black, and the last thing I heard before everything went silent was the faintest of whispers, lingering in the air like a curse. "I'll be back, for both of you." Thanks for watching. For more terrifying creepypasta stories, check out the playlists or the video on screen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Stay safe and stay scared.